Starfield could last for 10 years or more, according to Xbox head Phil Spencer. Todd Howard hints at the potential for a day one patch, and I want to discuss the potential for exploration. With the recent confirmation and reclarification that players can walk absolutely anywhere on a planet and land absolutely anywhere as well, it seems that Starfield is going to be the explorer's dream. In fact, that's something we keep hearing about again and again, the sheer scale of the game. But before we talk more about that, here's a word from today's sponsor, AMD. Starfield, a universe where every star, every planet, every reflection matters. And to truly appreciate this visual masterpiece, one needs a companion of equal caliber. For those eager to embark upon this journey with the right gear, check the video description. AMD has charted a course for you. AMD are the exclusive PC partner for Starfield, which means the game is optimized for their hardware, and as such, the AMD 7900 XTX is the beacon in leading the way. Listed on screen, you can see select AMD GPUs that come with free copies of Starfield. And for those thinking bigger, this offer extends to select full systems, a universe waiting for you at no extra cost. But why AMD? Well, it's not just about the best FPS per dollar offering unparalleled value, but also features like DisplayPort 2.1 offering future-proofing, and of course over 260 games including Starfield, which are enhanced by the easy-to-use FSR software, and with advanced RDNA, 3 compute units, ray tracing, AI acceleration, and a media engine optimized for OBS, these GPUs are designed for both gaming and content creators. Also, the Adrenaline and FSR software suites are your cockpit controls, offering a range of options to optimize and enhance, and with AMD Link, your PC games travel with you. So, as the stars of Starfield beckon, ensure your journey is powered by the best. In a video yesterday with Xbox head Phil Spencer, he discussed the future of Starfield. The nature of one of the questions touched on the subject of modding, just how flexible and how much is Starfield going to support modding. Well, unsurprisingly, it turns out that this is going to be a big part of their focus in the future. It seems they want to try and repeat the success they've had with Skyrim. Over 10 years later, nearly 12 years actually, and Skyrim is still very popular and has a massive modding community, and all of this really lends and contributes to the popularity of Skyrim. And yes, ultimately this has meant that Bethesda have sold Skyrim multiple times. Quite naturally, that leads to the question as to whether or not Bethesda will try the same tactic with Starfield. But 10 years in the gaming industry is a very long time. Go back 10 years in the past and it was a very different world when it comes to games. So really predicting forwards as to the impact of Starfield is going to be very difficult. But it's clear that both Microsoft and Bethesda do want Starfield to be around for a very, very long time. Now, elsewhere in an interview, Phil Spencer discussed Microsoft's new deal with Ubisoft. You may have heard that Microsoft have sold streaming rights for Activision Blizzard games to Ubisoft. And this really led to further questions as to the importance of cloud gaming to Xbox. Unsurprisingly, perhaps then, Microsoft are very keen to push this in the direction of mobile gaming. And yes, ultimately, this led to Phil Spencer suggesting that ultimately games like Starfield will be making an appearance on mobiles. Now, Phil Spencer wasn't the only person to be interviewed yesterday at Gamescom. There was also interviews with Todd Howard and Pete Hines. The interview with Todd Howard was pretty short, but he did pretty much say that the version of Starfield that reviewers are currently playing is not the final version, and that there will be a few more tweaks going into the game before it releases. Phil Spencer also confirmed the exact same point, saying that the current build of Starfield is not the final build. Obviously, it's unlikely there's going to be any significant changes at this point, but a few tweaks here and there does imply and does seem to suggest there will likely be a day one patch. Hardly surprising for this type of game, but what is that Starfield is already at version 1.6, which means that in terms of development, it's already seen a significant iteration and a significant development. So hopefully, fingers crossed, Starfield is going to release in a pretty good state. Of course, for those of you who've been watching these videos of mine for a while now, you will know that over the past few months I have said I'm fully expecting Starfield to release in a semi-buggy state. And whilst that's still entirely possible, word is on the street that the game is very stable and in a very, very good condition when it comes to bugs. Could be then that Starfield is going to be Bethesda's smoothest launch yet. Let's see how that goes. The other interview, of course, was with Bethesda's head of publishing, Pete Hines, and he touched on a few topics that I want to talk about in this video with regards to exploration. Now that's pretty good because when it comes to open world games, exploration is easily my most favourite activity. And that's actually pretty good because it usually is a main focus when it comes to BGS games, and Starfield is going to be no exception when it comes to this. So I actually want to use this opportunity to clarify a couple of points. It seems, based on the comments to yesterday's video about the ability to walk around on planets, that there's still some confusion as to how this is going to work. Now, of course, this is based purely on what we've seen so far in the showcase footage, as well as what Bethesda have said publicly. But the first point I'm seeing quite frequently is that a lot of people out there seem to be under the impression that you can only land at specific locations on planets. That's not true. You can actually land absolutely anywhere on these planets, and the choice is yours. But to help clarify that for people who may have missed it, here's some footage from the Starfield showcase which illustrates how it works. You can see on the map of the world here, you can just scroll around the planet, select a marker for a landing point there, and you can see you can then choose to land at that marker. So yes, you can land at any location on these planets. Alternatively, you can land at established locations such as cities or outposts. And also, just to reiterate the point from yesterday, when you land on a planet, you can fully explore that entire planet. You're not just limited to a small map. Interestingly though, a few people have been wondering exactly what are you going to do on these planets if you have this much scope and this much space. Well, we know that about 90% of the planets in Starfield are going to be barren. They'll only contain resources that you can use for other activities. But that still leaves 10% of the planets which will be either full of life in terms of flora or fauna, or maybe both. 10% of the 1,000 planets means that there's around about 100 different planets that should contain quite a lot of different details. And yesterday in his interview at Gamescom, Pete Hines again reiterated that every person who plays a game will experience different things on each of these planets. The locations of various areas on these planets is procedurally generated, and that means when I go land on a planet, I may find a scientific outpost, for example, and if you go to the exact same location, you may find nothing. Perhaps you find a cave. It will be a different experience. And this suggests to me that exploring the surface of planets is going to be very much worthwhile. It's the same type of gameplay we saw in Skyrim and Fallout 4, although in this particular case, it seems as though it's been done on a much grander scale. Now, elsewhere on the internet, IGN talk about the live demonstration of Starfield they received at Gamescom. Yesterday, we talked about how GamesRadar had experienced the same demo and gave their impressions of what they saw, and today IGN have done much the same, although this time they've gone into a little bit more detail, well, step by step actually, on exactly what they saw. So what follows is a big spoiler for the opening sections of Starfield, so make sure you skip the next minute and a half or so if you want to avoid those spoilers. Now, as has previously been established, the player starts out as a miner, and they begin their adventures in a cave underground on an alien planet. The planet is inhospitable to humans as they need to wear their spacesuit here even down in the cave. Now, IGN pointed out that even from this initial section of the game, the players are introduced to a bunch of interesting and quirky characters. IGN also stated that the Starfield's visuals are a noticeable step up of previous Bethesda games, although they don't quite reach the levels of other AAA games that have been released in recent times. One thing that really did stand out to IGN though was the music. They felt that was a particular highlight. Eventually, anyway, the player is led through the cave to a specific area where they find a metallic blue deposit, and this they mine. An accident then ensures, due to the nature of what they discover, the alien artifact which is central to the game's story. Now, I'm not going to go into any more details beyond that. I think that is enough, even for those of you who perhaps hung around for these spoilers, but it gives you a bit of a taste of how things are going to unfold. Clearly, the initial opening segment of the game is very directed and very guided, and this is usual for these types of games. Maybe a half hour to an hour is going to be that way, and after that you'll find yourself in the fully open world. In fact, IGN do highlight this, that everything leads to that big step out moment where you're introduced to the wider world. If you're interested in more details, then the IGN article is certainly worth a read. At any rate, that brings us to the end of this particular video. Also, do remember that it was sponsored by AMD, and thanks to them for that. Do check out those links in the video description. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.